Okay, everybody, welcome to tonight's Design Boardroom. JoAnne Lenart-Weary is with me. Hi, JoAnne.
Hi, Sandra. Delighted to be here.
So this is a perfect timing for this topic, talking about colors of the year. We want to talk about how they're going to influence the mood, the space, the style, your confidence level, and also the confidence level of your client. We want them to feel happy in the space. I mean, how many times have you painted a room, whether it's for yourself or someone else, and it's like, oh my gosh, I love the space. It just is, has that kind of power. And we also want to talk about profitability, how you could earn money in this awesome field. I'm out in Scottsdale, and some of the colors that my clients are drawn to are a little bit different than other regions of the country. Here's JoAnne and myself. We love getting together. As you can tell, we love color too, because um, and we want to talk about how you can incorporate it. And I do love trends. I have this nice little title here as well as the Executive Director of the Decorating and Staging Academy, because JoAnne handed that off to me. But we want to also point out as we talk about color and how it influences and has all those powerful things we just talked about, that there is no trend or color Bible. You do not have to do just because a color of the year pops up and it's like, oh, I remember when the urban bronze or urbane, however you like to call it, bronze popped up and it's like everybody painted it. And you would see these rooms and you would like, oh, please, you should not have done that. So we want you to be empowered and understand color better after tonight. So tell them a little bit about you, JoAnne.
Hi, everybody. I'm JoAnne Lenart-Weary. I've been in the industry since about 1979 or something like that. I've been doing this for a long time. I was doing it back when I had no business doing it. I didn't know anything except what I thought I knew. I call it the arrogance of youth. The beauty of it, here I am at 72, still doing it, still have clients, still teaching classes, still coaching, still loving it. So for those of you that are brand new, know that you're in an industry that has great longevity. They don't care how old you are, because they know that then you have some experience, and they don't care how young you are, as long as you're open and receptive to your clients. One of the things that I learned very early on in my business was talent was not enough. And it takes more than talent. So I'm also a certified guerrilla marketing coach. And I have found that for most of my students over the years, that's their weakness and not their talent. So that's why we're going to talk about profitability and confidence as well tonight.
So we
So
thought, you go ahead, Joy.
I was going to say, let's just kick it off. We're going to talk about the first COTY, and these are not in any order of preference, but Benjamin Moore has come up with Cinnamon Slate as their number one. But the reality is that both Benjamin Moore and Sherwin Williams are kind of what's the word, wimping out here a little bit, because they both have come up with collections this year, and we'll be interested to hear what you have to say about them in a little bit. So Cinnamon Slate is the first in their collection. And Sandra, any comments in regards to this color?
And we're going to talk to just about style. This is a color that I would love. If I were your client, in fact, I had a color, Sherwin Williams, they still have it. It's called Socialite. And I used it in my kitchen, and it was kind of like a little bit of a muted eggplant color if you want to, tie it to the space that you're putting it. And I love it. And I am just painting my family room, the major wall parts of it, mink, which is a little bit more in this family. The mink is, I would say, we used to say don't use the word muddy or dirty or whatever, but it is a little bit more muted than the cinnamon slate. So I would love this color.
So we're going to see, as we look at these colors, there is a definite trend towards that violet and pinky hue. These are colors that typically are very flattering. and to your skin. So keep that in mind when you are working with clients and selecting colors. How are they going to look in that color as well? And especially if you're doing the master bedroom. Okay, Sandra? Here is the palette. Now, one of the things that we want you to be aware of, and that we often tell our students in our color class, is really look at the color. So when you look at this palette, you know, what are the commonalities in this palette? And we can see one of the things that is all of these colors do have a muddiness to them. And so they support one another beautifully. When you pull together a room or a color palette, you want it to feel equally supportive, even though one color may be in prominence in the ratio that you use it in. You don't really want a diva in the space. So these colors you can see all work beautifully together, because these would be in what Sandra and I would call palette D or E. So they're muted neutrals, but still have some interest to them.
And two, if you'll notice, it has been nice in a lot of the collections is they give you one color that is what we consider might be that neutral color to go on the wall. Like JoAnne said, not you can't have too many divas in anything, but this seesaw is what could be that kind of neutral color on the wall.
So let's talk about how color affects mood. So you've probably been hearing more and more about the science of neuroaesthetics, and that simply studies how the brain perceives beauty. Now, all of you that are on this call, as well as Sandra and I, have been witnessing that for years. We see the difference in the way children behave in a room that has been beautifully designed or decorated. And is functional as well. And kind of the buzzword the last couple of years has been dopamine design. And the idea is that the way we surround ourselves can encourage a more positive attitude. And sometimes when we think of dopamine design, we think of more brightly colored colors, but it just simply needs to be something where some contrast is created in that room. And we'll see some pictures that kind of show that. I always use the term pretty pockets, because how many times, if you're sitting there in the morning and you have your cup of tea, is there like a spot in your room that you look at it and it just brings a smile to your face? Every house needs to have a series of pretty pockets. The goal where you come in is to create a series of pretty pockets that feel cohesive. So it's not that you know, a DIYer has gone to Home Goods and brought home a bunch of pretty things and set them around the room. Everything needs to come together, and that room needs to dance together beautifully.
That's a good point. So one thing I was thinking too, when we were talking about, like JoAnne was talking about the pretty pockets or how we respond, this dopamine design is what makes that client feel good. We had a trend, the buzzword was global views several years ago. And we loved it as designers, and what not staging as much is that it gave us that permission to give a client what they wanted, where they had traveled, what made them feel good, but it's also very subjective. That warm feeling, even if you're bringing in big pops of color, those very saturated ones, you want to make sure that they are done properly, and you know that composition completes it. So I love this kind of buzzword too. Just like you want to know what's happening with the COTYs, the colors of the year, you also want to know some of these terms. When you throw them out, your client's going to go, heck is she talking about? But after you explain it, they're like, oh my gosh, I love it. And she knows her stuff.
Yeah, because the bottom line is it's not what you see, it's what you feel. And color is very personal. So as we look at these colors of the year this evening, you're going to find some that you absolutely love, and others that you like, and others that just don't even do anything to you. So understanding how a client feels in a space. And that's why we think it is so important to give your client a color test before you begin with that, to see what hits their hot button. The biggest mistake you can make, and one of the things we challenge you on the regular, if you are in the industry and working with clients, is looking back at your projects, and is there a sameness to them? Do you kind of have a look that you do again and again? Now, for some people, having a look, such as Joanna Gaines, has made her a great deal of money. But for most of us that are in a smaller market, you need to be a little more versatile in what you're doing. So give your clients a color test so that you can ensure that you're decorating for them and not for you. Just like we look at these pictures, and of course, this was just done with filters, but is your client happier with the colors being a little more subdued, like we see on the left, or do they like that more vibrant intensity of colors like we see on the right?
And sometimes where you live, like we were talking before, like if you're in Florida or some of these coastal areas, you might see more of the one on the right. There's their location we were talking about.
Absolutely. The thing that we need to understand is clients are unique. And so we will hear all these textbook examples. If blue will make you feel calm, red will make you feel agitated. And the reality is that, yes, we do have that response to color when it comes to the intensity of the color, the physical waves of the color. But our mood and our reaction to color is more impacted by the age we are. Colors that I might have loved at 20, I may not like as much at 70. And part of that also is because my eyes have changed. Where we're located, as Sandra said, the color palettes that she would select out there in the West are completely different from what I might do here in the Northwest. Although America, the United States, has become more of a melting pot due to the internet. The exposure, what have you seen? What have you done? I can remember as a brand new designer back in my 20s that someone would give an idea that was more learned than I was because they had traveled more, and I couldn't picture it because I didn't have enough education or experience. Our color mood is definitely impacted by the saturation of color. When I said to you, these colors that are on the palette here would be palette D or E, they don't have the vibrancy of some other colors, and that would be saturation. Pop culture. How many times have you ever bought something that when it first came out on the market, you said, no way would I ever wear that? And 3 months later, you were wearing that color. I remember a lime green leather jacket exactly like that I ended up buying after saying, oh my God, who would wear that color?
We didn't even care if it looked good on us. We just wanted it because
Yes. And emotional experiences. So, for example, I have a granddaughter who has been through quite a bit in her young life, and her friend since she was an infant is Behr, and Behr is blue. And if I ask Paisley what her favorite color is, it's blue. And I would dare say that her favorite color will be blue, probably when she's an adult, because blue signifies safety to her. It signifies warmth. So, how do the palettes make you feel, and more importantly, make your clients feel? And most of you have our power words you're seeing up above. If my client describes the room that they want, does the palette I'm thinking of fit in that box?
that's a good point too. These power words, and snap a photo if you want to of those. Because what could be calming to me may not be to somebody else. So once you kind of zero in on some of these words that they would identify with the space you may be helping them with or your own space, then you get to zero in on what does that look like. Like for JoAnne's granddaughter, it's that blue. My mother had blue to the point I didn't want anything blue. I just got a little
Right.
gorged on it. So yeah, those power words are amazing. Plus, they let your client know that you're not there to not kind of delve into what they're interested in. I know I'm on the fence about this one. I mean, not that I don't like very deep colors, but just so you know, you'll be in the know that Sherwin Williams color of the year is called Grounded. The plus about this color is as we were talking before about, you have to consider what's in the space. Just because you love a color, if it doesn't go with those existing elements, like in this case, the floor or the staircase, which is very unique and pretty, by the way. But you don't want to just use it just for that. But this color would go with a lot of those brown honey oak floors that you see, that camel leather. So just so you know, Sherwin Williams color of the year is grounded. And I'll tell you, go ahead.
I was going to say, and you know, it's part of their palette that we're going to see on your next slide. But keep in mind, again, you heard Sandra say earlier, this is strip 197 in your Sherwin Williams color deck, and this is actually an orange. So when we think of what goes with brown, we're actually thinking what goes with orange. This definitely has more red in it when you see the paint sample than it looks in this. So understand that you're going to get those nuances of red.
This is also a good reminder. See, I am holding up this strip, and I will tell you, it looks different than what I am seeing on the screen. So if you are showing a client or you're trying to make the decision, you're not going on some AI only that they picked out the color for you. You have got to be the expert and see it in the space at different times, because this is different than it is in person. So it's the pixelation of, the screens, their computers, and all that.
So one thing that I would like you to comment, as keeping in mind that we just saw the Benjamin Moore palette, and now we are looking at the Sherwin Williams palette. Does anyone see any similarities to them? This one has more warmth to it because of the golds that are in here, but truly many of them are interchangeable. So it's interesting to see that these two major companies came up with palettes that are not that far away from one another. And let's be honest too, why is there COTY? Because they want you to repaint your living room and buy paint, is what it boils down to. It's to keep the industry moving, which is what Trends is all about.
And I will tell you, Rain Cloud is one of their very popular ones. It looks really pretty, even in, like, you'd think not in a laundry room because it's a small space, but I've painted in a laundry room. And Malabar at the bottom was the color I wanted for my exterior of my home. And because of HOA requirements, and that is something to remember, I wanted to be sure and point that out. If you are picking out exterior colors, you need to make sure that you don't need approval. 9110 was perfect. It was the color, I loved it, but it didn't have the LRV, the light reflective value. So we kind of had a workaround with it, but that's where you having the knowledge of which ones look good and again, I had to work with the stone. So just wanted to share those two.
So let's talk about how color palettes impact style. So style is going to go back to, am I mid-century modern? Am I bohemian? Am I traditional? Am I whatever? My very first color class that I taught was back in the 80s. And I remember one of my students saying to me the first night, can you just give me the 10 commandments of color? And in the early 80s, I was able to give her the 10 commandments of color. The beauty of today, they aren't there anymore. There are guidelines that are going to make sure a room appears polished. But what was traditional, and I think the next slide, Sandra will kind of show this. What was traditional, we're seeing on the left with this was a Ralph Lauren room that we saw lots of in the 80s and 90s. And this was a very classic family room. And what we're seeing today is more of what we're seeing on the right. Pure styles are non-existent. So someone cannot say, I am completely farmhouse even, because you're going to find when you look around that there is a blend of styles. Line, shape, form, color are all going to impact them. And the other thing, we're seeing things like this Bergère chair. Again, 20 years ago, we never would have put
Yeah.
that fabric on a Bergère chair. And today, we're doing all kinds of things on these classic traditional forms. So I want you to get less hung up on what do I call my style and more hung up on what are the lines and shapes and forms that your client wants in the room. And that's going to help you to know which styles mix together well.
And we encourage you to, even if you go to Pinterest, like seeing this chair jogged my memory that I got so like focused on fun things that you could do with chairs. I mean, not that I'm going to upholster them myself, obviously, and not that I'm going to paint them, but what could I suggest to a client? And so
Mhm.
I probably have more pins on chairs just because these are the ones, items that you can put in a space that don't commit the whole room. It's one little diva part, like we were talking about.
Right, a personality piece.
Mhm.
So here again, here's Glidden's color of the year is purple basil. And again, we're seeing those violet, those warm tones. There's some reddy red in it, some pinky. Again, most women, whether you are pasty white like me or beautifully dark or olive, this is going to be a color that will complement most complexions. Glidden actually said, "Yep, we got one color, and it's purple basil."
Yeah, they
Unlike Benjamin Moore and Sherwin Williams, who straddled the fence. And then this is Valspar's Encore, very bright, very vibrant, a completely different feel from everything that we've been looking at so far. That has had more muddiness to it. And we're going to talk about the way the color was used in a couple of slides here. So knowing these colors is going to help to give you confidence. And Sandra and I are going to talk about how they do that.
So when
So,
you are thinking about color too, it's any product, like I just kind of listed a couple. It's not just what our mind goes to first, like what color, what paint color are you going to tell me to do? But it really is that stain. I mean, the day that I got called out to just go help pick out the stain, I'm like, okay, I know what I'm doing. You know, but it wasn't something that you think about like I'm going to be able to do that. But once you understand and see how color works in the space and what colors you should stay away from, it's important to say, okay, Mary, I know you love this color, but let me tell you why it's not working. So putting it on all the products that you're bringing in, where you're placing it, is the color balanced in the room? And again, that technique that you're using to be able to figure out what you're going to do, what color you're going to place. Um, Anything else you want to add on that one?
yeah, I knowing the product, and first of all, that's knowing the COTYs of the year. You know the colors of the year. So you know that product and you can speak to it, because trust me, about the time you think you don't need to know these things, your clients are going to talk to you about them, because if they call you, there's a chance that they love decorating, they want to be involved, but they know they don't have that ability. So you need to be able to speak to that. Placement, understanding how you're using it in the room. If you want to lift the ceiling, then you're not going to use your pops of color on the sofa, because that's going to drop the ceiling and give the illusion of a room that's shorter. So when you make a suggestion to your client, always know the why. And technique. As Sandra said, understanding your technique, how you approach a client. But also in the picture that we just saw, that was color drenching. So maybe not only are you recommending a newer color, but you're recommending a different way of using it. So Mary, we're going to do color drenching today, which means that we're going to use the same color on all of your surfaces, woodwork, as well as walls. We're simply going to change the sheen on the woodwork. So knowing these things is going to give you instant confidence if you can speak to what the changes are and what's happening out there.
And thinking about confidence, we also want you to be prepared for, and listen, we could bet money that you're going to get this, I just had a client not too long ago, and she said, "What color should I paint my house?" You know, she had bought a new house, um, picked out three colors. I don't give her more than three. I probably should give her more. Anyway, but we get back to Pinterest, and oh, everybody is using Revere pewter. Oh, it's everywhere. You know, what it could be any color, could be repose
Hmm.
gray.
Right,
But
right.
they will fixate, your clients will, and even we can do it sometimes. I mean, I have my favorite wall color right now because it works, but you have to be ready to say when you're talking about product placement and your technique, that is going to give the knowledge, the education to your client that you know what you're talking about, and Revere Pewter may not work in the space.
And also, Mary, do you want to be revere pewter like everybody else? Let's give your house its own personality. So the other way that the colors of the year give you confidence is knowing the trends is going to give you an expert status. If you know your stuff and you can speak to it, then people are going to feel confident of your abilities. It also is going to give you both presentation and social media content. If any of you have not jumped on this bandwagon and been sharing these colors and how they make a room feel, then you should be on top of that. And as I mentioned, clients are often interested. So, a couple of things you should do this week is use this information and use a product like Canva and create some design boards that you can be showing on your social media. If you haven't done anything before, this is a great way for you to start to just create some simple design boards. Canva has some templates already in place. You're just going to drop in photos. Also, order the large samples. All of these companies, Sherwin Williams and Benjamin Moore in particular, and Dunn Edwards, are going to have those large 8x10 samples. So order those samples so you have a ring and you can talk about the colors of the year. And then the media loves trends. Remember, you want to build TOMA, top of mind awareness. And so if they see you on TV or they hear you on your local radio program, pitch an idea to them, to the media about the trends, and let me share them with you. And I know you're nervous and I know you're scared, and so was I. And now you see, I can talk to the world at the drop of a hat. But when I started getting media attention in my business many years ago, it catapulted my business in a very small market to places I never would have gone to without.
That's such a good point. Because I mean, listen, if you don't get nervous, I mean, JoAnne and I mean, we were together not too long ago, and it's like, okay, as long as you know your stuff and you know more than they know. And I'll also encourage you when you order your samples, don't feel like you're asking for too much. I will order like three of the same color so I can just put them together, and I'll maybe order six, three over here and three over on the other side of the room. But they want to give you samples because they want you to buy their product. So, every time we teach a class, students will go, "Oh God, they just going to give these to us?"
Mhm.
Gladly, they're going to give them to you.
Absolutely, they are.
Feel like
Okay,
you're
this
just in
is,
the same kind of.
I was going to say, here we have that same, we're going to see a real turn. And haven't we been seeing a lot of the wine colors in Burgundy in fashion? And so rumor is Behr's color of the year. And again, there's that tone that can also be very flattering to skin tones. Again, Behr has one color of the year.
Dunn Edwards is really popular in my area. And they are all I did, just so you know, is reach out to them and say, "Hey, I need some color swatches. I need the decks. Just send me everything you got, your professional color kit." Guys, I mean, I have the whole shelf in my garage right now because I don't have enough room right here in this office. But they want you to explore their colors. This is a color that I'm not initially drawn to, but I would say a lot of the older homes, that adobe style, we still have some of those flat adobe roofs. Um, some beautiful, beautiful collections that some of the clients have. This color would be very pretty in those homes. We also have that California influence, even more so, during COVID. So we have that influence. So this color may not work in some of those other desired to be more of that modern feel, that kind of crisp white feel. But it is a pretty color if it's in the right spot. That's with
Mm-hmm.
every color. I mean, gorgeous
Mm-hmm.
colors can be
Exactly.
wrong.
One of the things that I think is important as we've looked at these colors, notice the trend that really matters is so many of these colors are deep valued after years of having, all white or almost white or all neutral rooms. However, what comes in the mail today, but my Serena and Lily catalog that is still, although has some color in it, there still is a fair amount of that neutral classic space. So what are we telling you? Do what really makes your client happy. But these moody colors in a world that just seems to be kind of chaotic and on end, it's like walking into a room and having a warm blanket. This is C2's color of the year, Raku. Again, you can see it has that same quality to it of having the warmth to it. This also would be an orange or a red orange if we were to color identify it.
And it's
Uh,
also good I'm sorry, Joanne, go ahead. I don't understand.
no, I was just going to say one thing that I found kind of interesting because we were talking earlier about technique and color drenching. And I thought it was interesting in here that they did color drenching with the furniture as well as the wall color. Where normally we would create some contrast, they've carried the color drenching into the upholstery.
That's a good, yeah. And you don't see that often. You've got to have a
Right,
client really willing to go there.
right.
I was going to point out too that even though this is what feels a little bit more masculine because of the moodiness of this color, but we had curves in the sofa.
Mm-hmm,
We got what is a more feminine feeling coffee table. So that is where we talk about, that technique, knowing what pieces to bring in, that it's going to give that balance of feminine and masculine. If
mm-hmm.
unless it has only masculine, you can do that too. But it's good to have that balance of shapes and textures.
I am currently working on a project for our historical society. The last for every other year we do a holiday house tour, and I've chaired it the last 4 years. This is my last year. I swear to God, this
She's
is my last
lying.
year.
She is lying.
But I went to a home the other day, and the house was very, very masculine. And the gentleman that owns the house is the only one that I've had any contact with. Well, I got to meet his girlfriend the other day, who is very young, and I referred to the house as masculine. And she was actually insulted at me that it was masculine. And I'm like, well, we have a full size motorcycle sitting at the corner, along with two gas pumps, walls covered in rough cut planking. We're kind of masculine. And she's insisting she wants pink poinsettias and pink and silver bows in the room. And it's like, oh God, I hope nobody thinks I had anything to do with this. But, sometimes it is hard for people to understand and really look at, like you said, a lot of people wouldn't have even noticed that line in the room. And the line, shape, and form is so critical to the end result.
And it is your job to be honest. If they've brought you there, even if the girlfriend is like gasping, it is your job to say, this is what is happening in this space. This is why this needs this new element or whatever it might be. Now, I will tell you, it's bugging me, JoAnne. I want this end table. We really like for the end tables to be where you could set your drink. Again, one of those
Right.
tips.
Yeah. And
But
that is always a challenge with the Chesterfield sofa,
it is.
but I would spill my tea. Okay, let's talk about profitability, because the bottom line is, and I looked at the names of many of you that are here, and some of you, like Sandra and I, Becky Harmon, we see you out there, are oldies and goodies. And the only way you stay in business is if you make money. So using this kind of information as a money builder is critical. So let's talk about that a little. So let's talk about that a little. I didn't plug that slide in there, Sandra. So, when it comes to profitability, there are a few things that you want to do. First of all, we're coming to the holiday season. You're not going to get anyone for the next 6 weeks hiring you for a color consultation. However, come January, we want you to really be promoting it. And even if you're using in your marketing right now, talking about holiday decorating, talk about the colors that were used and what it does to the room. Start dropping little things that establish that you are a color expert, even if deep inside you don't think you are. You start dropping those hints because, as Sandra said, you only need to know one more thing. The next thing is I had mentioned to you about pitching yourself to the media. Come January, there is a drought. They don't know what they're going to talk about on the morning news, on the noon news, in the early afternoon news. So be pitching to your people, send press releases, send media things. If you have no idea where to start, call Sandra or myself, and we'll give you some pointers how to do that. And when I began pitching to the media, I started out by saying there are X amount of decorating shows on TV right now, and you're not addressing it at all. Or did you know that X amount of people will repaint the interior of your home this year? Give them some facts that they can hang their hats on, and that will help you to get where you're going. Some of the other things that you can do to help your profitability, these are some of the services we offer. Obviously, education is a big part. We've been, the DSA has been educating since 1999. The Confident Color System is undergoing a major revamp. Sandra and I touch every class that we teach on an annual basis to keep it relevant. But the Confident Color System is getting an update. So if you're interested in a color class, reach out to one of us. We can also help you with marketing, web and social media design, coaching, or if you just need a little encouragement or sympathy or shoulder to cry on, we're your girls.
You get 30 minutes of crying and then we take action.
Yeah, yes.
So here's our info. We would love to reach out. We really do also want to know what you want to talk about in the design boardroom. If there's some topic, in fact, I got one, JoAnne, just before we went live, like somebody wants to know more about window treatments and how to add that to your services, which is
a great money maker.
Huge. In fact, I used to have the number in my head 1 year, how much money I made on referring, because I was in Florida at the time. Becky, you can relate to this, on referring a company to come in and put window film in the house. I mean, you brought them to the table, but you still need to have some knowledge, and it doesn't take long to get it. What kind of film are you going to suggest, or what kind of shades or window treatments that you might bring, that knowledge to the table?
Absolutely. That's a great field. It was a big part of my income when residential design was my primary income. Sandra, let me just ask you, and then we'll see if anybody has any questions. Talk to us a little bit about how the Design Boardroom will be different from the last Tuesday series, because our timing is the same. We're still going to do it on the last Tuesday.
Yes, because we had to literally name the webinars last Tuesday webinar series to get it in all of our heads when it was going to happen. So we're afraid to change that. So it will always happen on the last Tuesday. I know the last month we did it a little bit early, but the playback was available. So what we really want this to be is, first of all, like I just said, what do you want to learn? We want to bring knowledge like this, the topic of, what are the colors of the years? This is the perfect time to talk about that and to kind of educate you and give you something, arm you with what you need to be the expert. A lot of times we might have handouts. We will have some kind of exercise that will bring it to the next level. And we
Mhm.
really always want to offer you, especially if we have guest people into the boardroom, some kind of deal. Like I know we've done some of this in the past, but like if there's something coming up, a conference, hey, here's a code and you can get $100 off or a percentage off of a class kind of thing. So, and that's what we did in the last one. We had the seasonal decorating. We totally revamped it. Let me just tell you that is a plus and a minus for us because we do we we do want to update things often more than we probably need to. But so we did. We offered a huge early bird special on the seasonal decorating certification class. And it was also available. In fact, it's still available if you don't need the certification. If you're a homeowner wanting to know the tips or just, explore it, reach out and I'll direct you to where it is. So it's supposed to be the design boardroom is going to be meatier, for lack of a better, detailed word, more comprehensive, as well as geared a little bit more to the professional or those that do want to make money. Doesn't mean that a DIY attendee won't get something out of it, because I mean, like tonight's a perfect example. But we want you to walk away with extra knowledge that is going to make you money.
Absolutely. Excellent, Sandra. Thank you. And I hope for those of you that know us, I mean, Sandra and I never do fluff webinars. We always try to give you some meat and hope that you walk away with something solid. And one of the things that I want you to, one word that I meant to say earlier is never say to your client, I think you should use this color.
Good.
You're going to say, here's the color I suggest, Mary, and let me tell you why. And that's the difference between no confidence and confidence. Okay, do we have any questions,
Okay.
comments?
Okay, hold on. Let me get right over here to our let's see.
We always say we're going to keep these a half an hour, and
No, never can do. Okay, for some, let me see if I can see that.
let me see if I
Oh,
can do it,
you would A.
Sandra.
Okay, now's your chance if you have, let's see, oh, here, okay, so one way to get the samples, you're going to want to go online, if it's Sherwin Williams, for instance, and you're going to find your rep in your area. And you're going to write a nice little email. And you can even say, hey, I just was on a webinar with the Decorating and Staging Academy, and I want to have some samples in the color of the year and whatever you may want. But they want you to go through your rep, which is makes sense. They want to be there for you when you need them. So if you want to get those samples free, and you want to even get maybe a professional kit, then you'll just reach out to your rep in your area.
Yeah, just tell them you want the architectural kit, and they're very accommodating to you.
And listen, be honest, like I would say I was not as I used Sherwin Williams the most, Benjamin Moore probably second, or if I, kind of would go back and forth. And some of it was client gets really fixated on the actual paint from Ben Moore. Not that
Right.
anybody knows what the difference, but Dunn Edwards was, because it is more popular where I am now that it has ever been in any place I lived. I really had to take some time and get familiar with that product. So I encourage you to do that too. Um, and JoAnne and I do typically we wrote a blog, gosh, I think it was 2 months ago, about a couple of our favorites, like my new interior favorite. Oh, I want to be able to say this too. If somebody calls you and says, just tell me what you think is the best white, the answer is no. You are going to set yourself up to look like you don't know what you're talking about, because all of the influences in the space that we've covered, I don't need to say them again, but it is okay to, even if it's your best friend, unless you are really confident with your virtual color consultations, and they are possible, you really are just going to get, I mean, we even, have some really good clients that want us to do that. And it's like, you don't know unless you are following those steps. And that's a whole nother webinar. Um, okay, let me see. Is there any other one? I think that was the only question let's see. Jenny said, I read Benjamin Moore is the manufacturer for all paint companies. Is that true?
I don't I don't think so. But I don't know so because everything changes. At one time, no. I mean, each company had their own source, but there probably are only two or three major paint manufacturers that are supplying
Exactly.
everybody else. But I'm going to say that whoever makes Sherwin Williams does not make Benjamin Moore's unless they're hidden way back in
In the woods.
in the woods or something. I don't
Well,
know.
and Jenny, I'll give you another one too. I was picking out paint for a client, and the painter said, "What finish do you want?" And I said, "Eggshell," because where we were putting it. He goes, "You don't want satin?" I go, "No, I want eggshell." He goes, "You know they're the same exact paint." Now, I just painted because the sample that I got, it was in, our little tubs. And you do have to be careful with those too, because sometimes Sherwin Williams only wants to sell you the quartz because then they know that they have that combo, that mixture right. But long story short, I had a satin sample, and then I ended up buying the eggshell that I wanted for the walls. They are not the same paint. So, like JoAnne was saying, we really can't believe everything. Not saying that maybe something has happened, but I can attest that they are not the same on that one. Okay, good. Okay, let me see. Anybody?
According to Google, Benjamin Moore does not make everyone's paint. But again, you can't believe everything that
She's
you
going to go
know.
back and say JoAnne said.
JoAnne said,
Oh, but that is a really good question. I
yeah,
mean, but the other thing in fact, I wrote this down so I wouldn't forget. So thank you, Jenny, for that question. If you are taking a sample to, let's say your client doesn't care, they want to use Behr or Valspar or whatever, but the color you've selected could be a Sherwin Williams. If the guy or woman takes your color deck and says, "Oh, I'll just match it and put it under the computer," no. You're going to make them look it up into the computer and use the formula that goes with it, because just like with the computer screen, it's subject to having a flaw. It can be off a little bit. So you want to give them, in fact, the other day I was getting the mink color that I was talking about. And he goes, "Oh, there's a lot of minks." I go, "No, there's not a lot of minks with this number, whatever it was, 6011, I think." I go, "No, just get this number." So you have to almost know your stuff enough to fight a little bit of, like be firm.
right.
Oh, anything
Product.
else?
Yep, know your product.
As always, guys, we thank you so
Well, you have a couple more questions,
much.
it looks like, Sandra.
Oh,
I
thank you, Becky. So Becky has been friends of ours. We've all been friends and been in this industry for a long time, and so we love learning from each other and being part of these webinars. So thank you for hopping on. And Betsy, so glad you're on. Okay.
Thank you to everybody for joining us tonight, and Sandra will be back next month.
Yeah.